All right, so we'd like to begin today with an access acknowledgement. Next slide. This means that access acknowledgement basically means that we are recognizing that we all have needs. There's our text. There we go. And so today we invite you to think about how to care for your needs in this virtual space today, whether that's fidgeting, which I'll be doing, stimming, feel free to step out as needed. We also have needs as presenters, so we may ask for questions to be repeated or may need time to process before answering, responding. And we also just ask that you exhibit care for each other and for us as panelists today as we are together in this virtual space. Next slide.
Yes, and so for some session and virtual space agreements, this is to help us make this space as open and welcoming as possible. We ask that you help create this inclusive community during the session by following the guidelines that we have here in your screen. Please be present and willing to listen and learn from what we share with you today. Uh, Please approach things with curiosity in ways that honor our different ways of being. And please hold confidentiality for what we will be sharing with sharing stories, but keeping the name from those stories to be much more conscious about our experiences. Please respect everyone's lived experiences and avoid invalidating them. Note that gaslighting will not be tolerated. Um, Next.
Okay. All right. So I will be doing, before we dive into introductions, we want to say that in this act of resistance and crip positivity, we choose to recognize our authentic realities as the core of reclaiming our crip identities and honoring the ways that we engage with the world around us. In doing so, we incorporate a human-centered focus on accessibility and disability inclusion through the framework of intersectionalities. The panelists will discuss the impact of the CRIP tax, share individual journeys towards self-acceptance, and offer perspectives and lived experiences while also asking questions of one another to highlight their distinct narratives. And so, if Dr. Phillips was here today, she would be able to go over her slide and introduce herself, but unfortunately, she's not feeling well enough to join us here today. And so we're going to move on to Marisol.
Hi, thank you, Tijuana. Hi, everyone. As was nicely introduced before, I am Marisol Morin Ortiz, and I'm very happy to be here and share this my experience as a neurodivergent woman. Um, I am wearing a um, yellow with purple and green lines cardigan jacket for those that or have vision limitations. I'm also wearing a mask for as a privacy advocate. I try to limit my image as much as possible online. I'm also a creative writer and poet, and I'm also a reference extraction librarian. And as a reference instruction librarian, I also attempt to be a mental health advocate for my students. Um, my pronouns are she, her, hers, ella. And my neurodivergent identities that I have been in recovery for a while is OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. For those of you who do not know the acronym, major depression disorder, which is clinical depression, and generalized anxiety disorder. And we provided a couple of definitions for you. For the sake of time, I won't go over it, every definition, but the main definition that I want to focus for what we'll be sharing about is my OCD, as that disorder is the one that influences the other two a lot. And is for my understanding, OCD really led to me having these other diagnoses as it causes a lot of issues for me. So it's a for those of you that you don't know OCD, OCD is inclusive thoughts that intrusive thoughts that cause anxiety, fear, and doubt. To decrease symptoms, individuals when these thoughts emerge, um, uh, what helps relieve the anxiety, the fear, the doubt is repetitive repetition. It can be mentally or action oriented physical compulsions to decrease that anxiety. But the anxiety decreases for a little bit, but then the cycle begins again and again. So I will talk about a little bit about how OCD recovery I have reached with my acceptance, and I'll talk a little bit deeper about that later on.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Christine Moeller. I just finished my dissertation recently, so I'm still getting used to that title. But I'm an LAS and disability researcher. I was an academic librarian for 7 years prior to starting the PhD program. I'm also a singer and a musician and a fiber artist, and my pronouns are they or she. I identify as queer, neurodivergent, and multiply disabled. And I am a white person with chin length, curly hair. And today I'm wearing a black top and a black and white blazer. Um, I have included on my slide here some of the sort of main things that I'm willing to share about myself today. The first being that I identify as ADHD, which is autistic and ADHD. Here I'm talking about how this enables creative, big picture thinking. I experience deep empathy and deep focus, but this also means that I experience sensory overwhelm, and some social interactions can be very taxing for me. I also have lupus, RA, fibromyalgia, and a number of other related health conditions. Together, all of these things result in chronic fatigue, pain, sleep issues. And I also have generalized anxiety disorder and PTSD. And so this leads to things like hypervigilance and ongoing worries, and overlaps with my ADHD and my rejection sensitivity in all sorts of fun ways that I'll get into more detail about later. Because it is complicated, and all of these things, we experience them all together and simultaneously. I don't get to be any of these things in solitaire and on its own at any one time. And so that's part of what we'll be talking about today.
All right, so my name is Twanna Hodge, pronouns she, her, hers. I am a third-year PhD student at the College of Information at the University of Maryland, College Park. Like Dr. Mollier, I am a former academic librarian. I'm a mental health advocate, author, avid fan fiction reader. I've been doing so for 20 plus years. Um, and some of my as you can see for the other panelists, we all have multiple diagnoses and chronic conditions that impact our lives in many different ways. And so for me, I have hypothyroidism, specifically Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune disorder where there's not enough thyroid energy hormones to meet the body needs. I have ADHD and generalized anxiety. And fun fact, but not so fun fact, I was diagnosed with most of these either in my late 20s to early 30s. So none of these conditions were caught earlier on. And so when I was exhibiting some worrisome symptoms, I had to work with my general practitioner to figure out which was very scary at the time because my thought always went to, I have a terminal disease, but thankfully it's not. But that's also part of the process when you are not seen as someone who would have some of these conditions. And so with that, we're going to dive into a little bit of background information because we don't assume that everyone knows about the library and information science profession. So the current demographics are, it is 86.7% white in the field. It is a predominantly female-dominated profession. And the realities of LAS work is that there's a very strong service orientation that demands emotional labor, and gendered concepts of care that sometimes can lead to vocational awe, compassion fatigue, and more. And I'll open up to Marisol or Christine if they want to add anything else. Okay.
What can I say? It's with LIS, it's a lot of it's a service. And with service comes a lot of empathy, and that empathy can become can lead to burnout, and especially right now with the our political climate, librarians in public, private, and academic spaces are really struggling with the emotional labor. So I'm very glad to talk about this briefly so that those present can understand a little bit more about the profession. So thank you.
All right. And we're going to go toss it to Christine to talk about the cryptax.
Yeah, so this is one of the things that we're talking about today. And the CRIP tax, if you aren't familiar, is the hidden financial, social, and emotional costs of living with any form of disability. This includes things like when you have to purchase a lamp for your office with your own funds in order to have the kind of lighting that you need, or even having to decide when or whether it's worth the energy to explain your chronic pain and fatigue to others. And we'll all be sharing some more examples of this in a moment to add some more context about how the CRIP tax impacts all of us. Next slide.
Thank you, Christine. Yes, so here we have been using the term neurodivergent or the neurodivergence. It's really the differences in body, mind, ways of being that do not align with dominant social norms and expectations. And those include can be mental disorders like what I have, OCD, um, depression, also ADHD. In neurodivergence, also sometimes called neurodistinct, neuroatypical, or neurospicy, which I like neurospicy. So I should be using that in my signature, neurospicy.
Um, and it was a friend of mine who introduced me to the term neurospicy a few years ago, and I definitely glommed on to that term. And so for disability, we resist deficit framings of disability and instead approach disability as a positive identity that is intentionally broad and accommodating of a variety of body minds. And so, this is for us to be able to kind of reclaim this identity that has been seen as, we have to be cured or fixed in order to be functional or contribute to society in some way. And so with that, we're at the moderated panel. We just wanted to give you all some background and some context. Um, and so with that, I'm going to ask the first question. So what are some examples of the CRIP tax in your professional, academic, or personal life? And I will kick that off. And so when Christine had talked about the definition of CRIP tax and thinking about like, having to buy your own lamp or maybe having to buy your own specific supplies to support your own needs, maybe getting a white noise machine if you need to have something that's constantly going, in the background for you. I didn't realize that I had ADHD until I was like, oh, I like to have music going on in the background, but like when I need to like really focus, don't talk to me, And then I was also thinking about how sometimes I end up buying multiples of the same thing because I keep forgetting that I have it at home. So like peanut butter, bread, headphones. There's a lot of things that I keep and that's that financial cost. And some people would be like, just have a list. And I'm like, that's not as simple as just having a list and checking things off. And in my academic life, it's been challenging being in a PhD program because people think that because you've either gotten a bachelor's, a master's, or a PhD, that you couldn't possibly have ADHD. You couldn't possibly have any issues because you've made it through these systems. And particularly for the PhD program right now, I'm realizing that like there is a lot of different difficulties. There's things I excel at, there's things that I don't excel at. And like the focusing, the hyper focusing, like the writing portion of things that I struggle a lot with, and I have to do body doubling or co-working with others to be able to like make progress on things. And so like those are kind of some of my examples. And so I will toss it to Marisol. What are some examples of the cryptax in your life?
For me, it's with OCD, it really I was diagnosed. I have always had anxiety in one way or another since I was a child, but it kind of switched to OCD when I was in high school. So since high school, and with the specific types of intrusive thoughts that I have, it really ranges. But what it what it really focused on is cleanliness and contamination. So with that comes a lot of cleaning supplies. I do clean, but it's more about what I can take when I go to spaces that are not mine. Like a lot of sanitizing wipes or one of the things that when I go to like when I travel for conferences, I need to think about um, how does this hotel have their bathroom? Um, I need to bring my own towels. I do not use hotel towels that they provide. So I pay for like baggage for airlines, check-in baggage. I am in my recovery journey, and that details. Most of my cryptax comes with, therapy, because with OCD, one of the gold standards for treatment is ERP, exposure response prevention, which a trained professional needs to help me with that. And with that, if I did not have insurance, I would be spending a lot more money than I am. But I am with therapy every 2 weeks because I want to really hit my recovery real hard on OCD. And with one of the things actually that I found it very interesting, but I was also very like, um, was, with the pandemic, I already, with the pandemic, it really showed a little bit how OCD kind of interacts with, safety and like contamination and everything. So during that phase, I was like, I got this. I know what to do. I was already doing the things that they suggested, and so it was a stressful environment for sure for the COVID pandemic. But the cost with OCD is a lot of energy, a lot of stress, and a lot of time and lots of connection because before my recovery journey that I was before I was as advanced as I am now of living the life that I want, it really was a lonely place and it really isolated me from the people that I wanted to be close with, my family, coworkers. So for me it does cryptex it is it does have a monetary value, but what is more cause more heartache for me is the the time and energy and distance from the people that I love. So, oh, Christine,
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that leaves me. I also want to thank everyone in the chat who's been sharing their experiences of cryptex. So thank you for being willing to share that with everyone. I also want to talk about something that I think the others haven't touched on necessarily, and that's the way that because I'm neurodivergent, I am constantly putting in an extensive amount of effort to filter everything that I am experiencing, everything I am hearing. The fan on my computer, the electricity in the walls, the sounds of the lights, the people outside, the sound of the mower. All of those things take active effort for me to sort of remove them from the front of my mind. The feel of my jacket, right? All the things that are touching me, the way that my chair feels. And because I also experience chronic pain, like I'm noticing right now, my chair isn't as comfortable as I thought it was, right? So I'm also like trying to set that aside so that I can be present and be here with you today. And so there is always this conscious, active effort to process all of these inputs, and like remember to focus on the thing that I'm supposed to be focusing on in the moment. And along with that, then comes the need to constantly reevaluate what I can do. What do I have the energy to do now? What do I have the cognitive ability to process now? Maybe I was in a meeting that was emotionally, cognitively taxing, and I had plans for the afternoon, but that meeting has now undone all of those plans, and I'm exhausted and I've spent my energy for the day. And so there's always this ongoing effort to figure out like what I can do, what I'm capable of at that moment, and to really be present in that moment as well. And then I would just say, there's been some talk about conferences, right? That is complicated when you're in higher education because you're expected to present your work. You're expected to put yourself out in these spaces, and travel is taxing. Conferences aren't accessible for me. The food alone is a major issue for me, and that's something I always end up paying for on my own because reimbursements don't necessarily cover that, especially if the conference is providing food, whether or not I can eat it. And so there are all these ways in which not only is it, costing me energy, it's costing me money. It's also impacting my professional trajectory because there are expected ways of being a librarian, of being an academic, that aren't open to me. And so, this is, I just want to highlight, I guess, all of the ways in which that crypt tax presents in our lives. And I'll leave it there.
Thank you for sharing, Marisa and Christine. And to add to what some people were putting in the chat, that the crypt tax, the black tax, the pink tax, like a lot of these has to do with these, social constructs that has real world implications. And how, similar to what somebody shared, is that a lot of times people would attribute, doctors would attribute my issues towards my weight, and they would say, get a nutritionist, lose weight, da 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 da, it will improve your health. And lo and behold, it never did, and come to find out it was other issues. And then for people who identify as female, the fact that medical gaslighting exists, and like, thinking about the issues that is still ongoing even within the healthcare system. Now, when women are unable to get to be taken seriously and to get the healthcare that they need. And so with that, um, we are going to move on to the next question is, if you feel comfortable doing so, please describe your journey towards self-acceptance. And I'm going to toss it to Marisol to go first.
Thank you, Tijuana. Um, yeah, so with me in OCD and all of these, the trifecta that I have, major depression and generalized anxiety, it really began with accepting OCD because they influence each other. But mainly OCD is the one that really caused the most chaos in my life. And reaching acceptance with OCD really has been occurring through finding the point in OCD recovery where I am living the life that I want to live, taking all those opportunities that without a fear of anxiety. And this, of course, this acceptance through finding the right specialist to help me with the proper treatment, and doing the hard work that comes with OCD. And that is really sometimes hard to do for people. Um, in the OCD community, the information that there's sometimes people that have OCD, it takes 15 years to get diagnosed because it is so hard to talk about it. It is isolates people, and sometimes people leave their families because of how fearful they are that they will do something against their family because of their intrusive thoughts, based on what the intrusive thoughts are. And so it really takes access to um, to reach that acceptance. And I've been lucky that I've been very open and vocal about my needs, what I need what I need to get better, and that is both in my family and in my community around me. Um, if you did not know about my from my name or my accent, I am Mexican, so I come from Hispanic culture, and if you do not know that culture, some people are very closed off about mental health, about just emotions. That has not been me. And I've been fortunate that I have family that when I needed help with mental health, they have not been negative about it. They have been supportive about it. And I think support is also very important for acceptance in my experience. And it's, acceptance comes and goes. Sometimes, OCD recovery for me is lifelong. I will get triggered depending on the my family, my life situation, events that happen. But OCD recovery is really knowing that I have the tools to manage and deal with those triggers and not let it overwhelm me like it did before. So that is something that I will share and give the ask Tijuana or Christina if they want to share.
Yeah, Marisol, I like how you said acceptance comes and goes. I feel like that has been my journey as well. And so I just want to acknowledge that for me, this is definitely an ongoing process. I am also late diagnosed. I saw some of you talking about that in the chat. And so I want to acknowledge that too. So that means that I am still learning things about myself and my ways of being that I haven't been able to honor previously in my life, or that that other people haven't been accepting of. I also wanted to say that in some ways that my research has actually played a really important role in my journey towards self-acceptance because I've been researching disability and libraries, and specifically the experiences of disabled librarians and of neurodivergent librarians. More specifically, that's what my dissertation was about. And so there's something that's been really affirming for me. I think I came to this work feeling like I was a failure as a librarian, and that because I had not achieved the kind of success that I thought I was supposed to, that was on me somehow. And yet, eh, the more I heard from other people, that they were having the same kinds of experiences, the same kinds of struggles, that really helped me see that it wasn't just me, first of all, and that the issues that were preventing my success weren't my personal issues, they were structural issues within our organizations, within our profession. And so that was really helped me see myself and my experiences in a very different way. And so I always tell everyone, I'm so grateful that I got the opportunity to do this research and that people have been willing to share their stories with me, because it really has impacted how I see myself, and taught me that that as much as I am willing to see them in positive light, that I can do that for myself too.
Thank you all. I got caught up in the chat. Because people are sharing some really good resources and sharing as well as their experiences, which can be incredibly frustrating when you always have to fight and to prove that you are a human being and you deserve, genuine care and equitable treatment. And so I 110% echo what Christine and Marisol said. I think for me, I'm still, it's some days are great and some days are not so great. But I think for me, it's because I have a community behind me. I have learn how to be vulnerable, which comes with a lot of risk. But I have been very open to a lot of people who have become chosen family to me and who's helped me along this way. Including somebody who passed away a few years ago, who was very, very determined to get me to rest, because I always felt like, my worth was based on how much I do. And so it took some time for me to unravel that. And I love the NAP ministry, Trisha Hersey, like, you don't have to earn rest, and understanding that, yes, deadlines are there. And somebody had asked about like, how do you deal with being frustrated, not, either meeting deadlines or like getting the things you need done. And something I tell myself and I tell others is that work will always be there. You won't. Some days you're going to be able to do 2 weeks worth of work in one day, or in a few days. But one of the things I've learned is honoring my body and listening to it, because burnout don't look good on nobody. Not at all. And also recognizing I don't have to give 110% for every single thing I do. I used to think like that, um and thought like if I didn't give it, like I was like somehow less than. And so a lot of times it was just so many struggles. So I think for me it's like today is a great day. I feel very good, like we're able to do this, and like everyone is like sharing their stories and reciprocating, and it's so great. But I know like probably after this, I'm just gonna be super mad and frustrated because you all have had really horrible, dehumanizing experiences. And I feel that deeply, And so with that, I will move on to the next question, that asks, what does it mean to be yourself authentically? And I will very quickly say, it's learning how to accept that I am more than my diagnoses. Um, I am more than the things people have told me that I am not, or that I have the potential for. Um, sometimes means having to say no to myself. 'Cause sometimes it's easier to say no to others. Sometimes it's harder to say no to myself. And understanding that the world might have all kinds of preconceived notions or perceptions about me. But at the end of the day, it's only what I think and believe that truly matters, for me at least. So I'm gonna pass it to Christine and then Marisol.
Yes, thank you, Twanna. I feel a lot of what you were saying there. I also want to say that like this is challenging for me at sometimes, or maybe often. I'm a recovering people pleaser. I've masked and concealed all of my conditions for so long in order to both make other people feel comfortable around me, and as a way of ensuring that they don't question my capabilities. And so there are times when it's very hard to step away from those learned behaviors. I feel like it's like peeling off all this like armor that I've put on. And who am I underneath all of that? Sometimes I wonder. And yet there are these moments, right, when I am rolling around with my cats on the floor or singing at the top of my lungs in the car when I remember like this is who I am. Or like when I was writing my dissertation and I'd lose track of things because I was so into my research and my writing, and I really cared about like conveying the significance of this work and these stories that had been entrusted to me. And so I feel like those are those moments when I realize like this is what it means. It's all of those things to be me authentically. And I think the challenge for me is being intentional about making space for those moments rather than feeling like they happen accidentally. And so I think, that's something that I'm trying to build more of into my life as I learn to unmask more, and honor who I am as a human being. And so go ahead, give it to you, Marisol.
Thank you. Yes, I agree with quite a bit of what Tiwana and Christine. Has been somewhat my own, also my experience. Because we are so many things. We're not just one. For me, OCD is just a one thing. It's a big thing for sure. But now that I'm more in my recovery goal, um, OCD really, I'm trying to look at it as a challenge that has helped me to be stronger, to advocate for my values and what brings me joy without feeling guilt about it. And that helps by also my authentic self of not keeping OCD a secret, and being like today, being to talk about it, share my experience so that others do not feel that they need to be silent about their struggle. Because once you take the power away from the struggle, um, it can help you to break free from that struggle and find a place of joy and peace for yourself. So that is what I've been trying to find in my life. Reach a point where I can live with joy and not hate the fact that I have OCD. So that has been a learning experience, but also has allowed me to really look at what I value and bring that to the way that I behave and what I choose to advocate for.
All right. And so I acknowledge that I don't know what it feels like for y'all. I feel like the time is going by really fast because we're having a really rich and really amazing conversation. And I'll also tell folks, keep putting questions in the chat box because we'll respond to it and incorporate it into our questions as well. And so this is, how do you live in a world that deems you as broken? And I will toss it to Christine to go first.
Yeah, this is really challenging. And I will say I'm not always good at this, right? I definitely fall into those moments of giving space, more space than I should to those negative dialogues. The things that I have heard from people about me that really would mark me as broken. And so I guess, I often try and step back from that and reframe that word broken, right? No, I'm human. And in all of the complexity that that entails. And if you want to see that as broken, then that is on you and not me. I'm not always good at that, but like that's my that I try to hold and honor that perspective as much as I can.
Marisol?
Um, what this question really got me to really think about like how and through my journey I really have come to reflect about the fact that we live in a society that really values perfection, but in reality nobody's perfect. Imperfection is perfection. I am perfect with my imperfection of just being human. And by acknowledging that and accepting that, I bring myself to, be in spaces, speak in spaces about what I'm struggling with, being open for students, for my colleagues to feel free to be like, I'm struggling. And here where I work at a community college, and in my environment, I try to check in with my colleagues and see how they're doing, and also offer hugs. I love hugs, and if people are struggling, I'm like, "Do you need a hug?" If they say no, I respect their boundaries. But if they say yes, I give them a hug, and I let them, hug me as long as you need. And you know, making sure that also, people are accountable if they say something that is not appropriate. Like if it's like they say, "Oh, that is so OCD." What, that's one of the things that I try to so that be open about me OCD and what it's like, so that people acknowledge that those kind of comments are not okay. Um, so that the environment is safe for expression of struggle. I try to give my perspective and make sure that people know that they're not alone.
I appreciate that. And there's something that somebody had asked about, like, imposter syndrome. And in response to that, I said that, and this was something I read somewhere. Someone brilliant had said that it's a natural reaction to the oppressive systems that we have to navigate every day. We're not imposters. The systems and structures we're designed to make us feel like we're imposters. And so it's the same thing when I think about, for me, is like the intertwining of like racism, sexism, and ableism and other things, and how a lot of the times, because like I am a Black cisgender woman, I am from the Caribbean, deep Caribbean roots, and the fact that in the last 3 to 5 years there's been so many things that have happened, but a lot of people think that people of color are not human beings, that we don't have the same um we don't have human dignity and respect. And so I think for me, some of the times it's um was is dealing with that, and acknowledging that I'm not broken. The world is. The world is designed for us to feel like we're broken, that we feel less than. And so for me, it is recognizing that and rejecting that. And so, because this conversation has been so wonderful and so fruitful, we are going to very quickly, in one sentence or less, answer the last slide, and then go to Q&A. And so I will kick us off and say, I am who I am. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes I don't feel like myself. Sometimes when I first got my hypothyroidism, I struggled with it because I thought that I would not have to take medication every single day on an empty stomach in order for me to get the energy that I need to function. And so that first diagnosis and the others, I did struggle with, like, what is normality? What does it mean to be normal? What does it mean to be a human being? And to be somebody in my late 20s, early 30s, to have all of these diagnoses and to have I need to have like further pharmaceutical interventions in order to manage them. So it's still a journey in that sense, but I am who I am. Take it or leave it. But I also recognize I'm not for everyone. Christine, are you still?
Yeah, I
I
can
would,
jump in.
oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Okay.
I'll
So,
say quickly.
go.
I'll say quickly. Listen, advocate for voices that are not listened to, and open the space for uncomfortableness and vulnerability. We'll say that.
Yeah, and I will just say quickly, try to remember, like we're all complicated human beings in a really complicated world that is not kind to us. And so, that's something that I try to keep in mind while balancing that with holding people accountable for their actions and their words. So there's room for both of those things.
All
Yes.
right.
Thank you
Uh,
all very much. That was a lively and fantastic panel that clearly there's a lot of resonance with the attendees. I copied a few of the questions. You all were fantastic in responding to the questions in the chat, but I wanted to give you the option to verbalize those answers or expand on some of them, and then open it up to further questions in the last. So the first question that again had been answered, but don't know if you want to add more, was how do you deal with the frustration if you aren't able to get your work done? It's something that the person deals with, and often turns to self-inflicted. So again, there's an answer in the chat, but we need to give you all the options.
Yeah, I think that's sort of me. I guess as I'm thinking about responding to that question, part of me is wondering, well, what does getting your work done mean, right? Because one of the things that I experience is like, I make a plan for every day because I need structure. I can't necessarily hold to that, but I do need it. So I'll make a plan and I will say, here's what I'm going to get done today. And then life happens. And so maybe by the time that I mean to be working on that article that I'm trying to get submitted, I don't actually have the mental capacity to be doing that, right? So technically, I am not getting my work done. But the way that I have taught myself and continue to teach myself to view that moment is to recognize that I am making room for me to come back to this work when I am better suited to be able to tackle it well. There are moments when, you just have to, like, someone's waiting for something, you've got to get it done. But as much as possible, I really try to structure my work life so that I have that flexibility to be able to say, you know what, this is not going to go well if I do this at this moment. I will put it on first thing tomorrow morning when I know I have more energy, and recognizing that the work itself will be much better for me having made that decision. Do others have anything you'd like to add there, my panelists? Twanna or Marisol?
Yeah, like for me, I always been, even when I was in my a major depression episode, I have always been functioning, so I have been able to, through great pain and energy, accomplish things. But now that I'm more in my recovery journey, I'm much more acceptance of it's okay to postpone. Um, and also it's okay to say no to new things coming in. Um, One of the things that I also focus is what can I do that will help me get it done? And that is most often things that I take on projects that I enjoy doing, and that helps me to have a little more energy to do what I need to do for the day. But once I'm done at work, I try not to look at email when I get home. I set my boundaries of um, you will not receive an email from me until the next working day. I also try not to think about work at home. It's sometimes not easy. Um, and I also try to um, ask for assistance if I can accomplish something. Um, and I've had good response to that from my colleagues. Well, if I need more time or and so that kind of open communication with my colleagues, I've had a good experience. I know that not a lot of people have that because it really depends on the environment that you're working and people's personality. So trying and making sure that I know and keep in mind that I can only do my best. It's not going to be perfect, but nobody can expect for perfection for me. Only the best that I can do, and that's enough. Do you wanna add anything?
I just literally put it in the chat box, but I misspelled care. Trauma informed approach and care. So a lot of times for me, like the care that I put into other people, I try to put it into myself and recognizing that if somebody couldn't do their work because their washer kind of like blew up, etc. It's the same thing of like I literally don't have the emotional capacity to do this anymore. That is a valid reason. Um, and it's also rethinking how I think about labor and work, and people need to accept the no. So when you say no, the people need to learn how to accept the no.
Great responses all around. So try to get through two more questions. I don't know if we will. The first one is what accommodations have you found work in your life?
Hmm. Accommodations at work?
It says in your life, so I would say as you navigate, whether it's work or friendships or just daily living.
When accommodations with OCD, I I'm gonna take the step. I have not requested an accommodation. I hadn't needed accommodations at work, but when I was in undergrad, I did request accommodations as a student. And that was a new start for me, new challenge when I was in undergrad because there's that feeling of having an advantage if you're taking accommodations, but the reality is that in order for you to have be at the same level of being able to accomplish your goals, you need those accommodations. It's not you're not getting extra whatever. You're just needing what you need to be successful to the level of others that do not have, OCD are able to do. So that was a learning process for me when it comes to accommodation. Um, with personal, with relationships, I haven't really thought about accommodations. Um, I will open it to Tijuana and Christine to give their perspective on that.
Thank you, Marisol. And if it's helpful for the other panelists, think about it as solutions or you know disability hacks that you've used that have worked for you.
Yeah, I posted a bunch of things in the chat. So lots of soft things, soft clothes, soft lighting, soft music. All of those things help me both because I experience chronic pain and because I'm neurodivergent. Mental health days, like keeping everything on a calendar. I'd be lost without a calendar. I wouldn't know where to be or what I'm supposed to be doing. So all of those things are strategies I guess I've adapted to just help me be myself and get through my days.
Now that Christine shared, I can say that for me, it's hugs at work. Like people know that. Like I ask people now, like my colleagues that I'm close to, I'm like, so can I have a hug? They're like, sure, and we hug it out. So, and I think, and just like for me, for like to support, I really think about like self-care is very important. And anything that for me, self-care is that brings a little bit of joy, brightness. Um, and that varies day to day for what I need, but it really is about staying connected to people, and reaching out if I just need anything. Like I call my mom every other day to check in to make sure she's doing good. I video chat with my nieces. I also do not shy away from mentioning to my nieces who are young, they're, you know, 9, 8, 15. I do not shy away from being like, oh, my OCD is like acting up. I'm also willing to expand if they ask questions about OCD. I have always been very open with my family about that, but I think openness for me is also something that I use as a accommodation for to be better, because with openness in communication, I can communicate, hey, I'm struggling. Can you give me a hug? I'm here. So, do you want to?
I know that we are at time, and I will say apologies for all the wonderful questions we did not get to dive into and answer. But I will say body doubling has been something incredibly helpful to me because other people keep me honest on untask. And I've said this to many people, and I have like a remarkable device that, like, instead of writing it down in a notebook, I have too many notebooks, I have too many post-its, too many things. So I just have this one thing in Google Calendar where I tell people if you don't see me write it down, then it's not going to happen. Okay. So those are some of the things that I do. And it's been a pleasure being able to share our stories with you all, for you all to share your stories. Is at 5 p.m. and I'm gonna let the organizers wrap us up and move us to the next session if there is a next section.
Thank you so much. Gotta love presenters that are excited about what they're presenting, get people involved, and finish on time. You guys get the gold star for today. Thank you again so much for sharing your stories and this fantastic